Well, we're at Twilight Town now. If you're wondering what's going to happen now that we've exhausted the Disney worlds, I'll tell you. We got 3 more worlds to go. Each world will give us a new card after we've completed it through a story segment. Each of these worlds are slightly different than the ones we've come from. For example, there's no more 3-story doors to go through now. Each one has 1 or 2 doors to go through. However, don't make the mistake in thinking that just because there's less story rooms that all of a sudden these stages have become shorter or easier, because the opposite has happened. Going from place to place to get to the story doors now will take a lot longer, with the exception of this stage, Twilight Town, which can be the shortest stage in the game if you choose to make it so. I recommend stopping here and grinding like crazy though, but that's just me. As far as world map door cards go, you're only going to get 1 new one. You'll get the Mingling Worlds from now on. Basically, it's just allows you to randomly select a room. It's a worthless card in my opinion, but it's a blue card, and if you need a blue card to open the story door, feel free to keep it around. I toss them myself. So now that you know what's coming up, let's start Twilight Town. Twilight Town is a brand new stage. You have not encountered a stage like this in the original Kingdom Hearts, but don't worry, if you're planning on picking up the 2.5 HD remix, you're going to be stuck in this stage for 3 hours in Kingdom Hearts 2. The ironic part is this is probably one of the shorter stages in Chain of Memories. You only have to go through 4 rooms of Sora, and one of them should be a called Bounty Room, so 3 rooms total for you to really worry about. But I do recommend grinding a little bit. It's very helpful to get the Mega Flare spell, because it just makes Destiny Island so much more easier. The enemies in this stage are pretty simple. They're basically every enemy you encountered clear back in Traverse Town, only now they've had huge increases in their attack and health. So this stage will take a while to get through all the enemies, because each battle just pours a whole bunch of enemies that just aren't going to die in one hit or two. It's a great way to test out your deck and make sure everything's working for the next few stages. Again, getting the Mega Flare here will be useful as well, because none of these enemies have a fire resistance to them, so they burn pretty quickly under that attack. If you use Call of Bounty, you will get a spell called Warpinator. Stop Gravity plus Arrow. Okay, I can think of other more useful abilities than this to use those cards with at this point. But basically it casts death on one enemy. That's all it does. It's similar to the Final Fantasy death spell. And if you played Final Fantasy, you know that death spell isn't that accurate, and usually you're better off casting a spell that just does regular damage than taking the risk. So don't use it. That's my advice. Your room to rewards treasure chest contains Stardust Blitz. Now this one's kind of a nice one because it doesn't exhaust anything from your main deck. If you got a Donald Duck card handy, it will allow you to cast the Slight. Basically, Donald will pop up and he'll start throwing fireballs at you. You gotta time the triangle button right, and if you do, you'll manage to throw out all this fire across the stage. It's kind of a useful move, and it's different from what you learned in the GBA version. If you're playing through the GBA version, this store will give you the Flaming Donald, which all he'll do is run across the screen with his tail on fire and cause damage to any enemies he hits. That one was kind of a worthless gag move. Stardust Blitz is not worthless, it's actually kind of fun to use. Like I said, I stop and grind like crazy in the stage, so I picked up 2 moves. One of them is called Ragnarok. Basically, it works with any combination of Keyblade cards, which totals are 7 to 9. So yeah, this one's one that bosses can easily break, but it can cause damage if you manage to hit an enemy with all those laser blasts. The problem is hitting them with all those laser blasts. They kind of have a really heavy feeling and are very inaccurate, especially compared to the Game Boy version, which, they just shot across the screen like a regular laser beam. So just beware of that. It's not a bad move to use. I prefer Ars Arcanum. if I use low numbered Keyblade card values, but it's not a bad one to use at all. And of course, leveling up clear to level 57 unlocks the notorious Mega Flare. One Mushu and 2 fire cards will win basically every battle in Twilight Town and Destiny Island. It's a great way to spam for some extra levels. So please be sure to pick this one up here, because the monsters in Destiny Island are a bit of a pain without this. Your boss for this world will be Vexen again. Nothing much has changed since you fought him in the hallway. He's got one new sleight for you to look out for, and that is called Slide Break, I do believe. He'll pull out a giant sword and try to smack you with it. Just look out for that move and break it. Remember, zero cards are your friend in these organization fights, because when they start pulling out their big sleights, just make sure you got a zero card ready to use to break it before they even get it off the ground. That's my advice. Use moves like Sonic Blade, Lethal Frame, and if you can, Wild Crush, although I'll warn you, he can break that if you're lucky enough to get moves from Donald and Goofy in. He's not a hard boss, but he can be a pain. One of the things I have to warn you about, although I don't really see him using this in RE Chain of Memories as much as he did in the original Game Boy version, is a move called Auto Life. I do suggest putting the Parasite Cage into your deck just in case he pulls that out. What Auto Life does is it revives him and gives him an extra bar of health when he dies. Used it every time I fought him in the GBA version, but all the times I played through the RE version, he's only used it, I think, once and on a higher difficulty. So if you're playing on easy, like I suggest, if this is your first time through, you might not have to worry about him using that. But if you see Auto Life appear in the corner, then go activate the Parasite Cage to avoid that problem. You don't want this guy coming back with any extra health. Finish this guy off and he'll give you his card, which allows you to use Auto Life. I recommend putting that in your deck right away. If you don't have enough CP, see if there's extra baggage you can remove to put that in, or stay here and level grind. His card is very useful for the boss fights that are ahead. Well, we haven't seen Riku in a few floors, and here we are back for another round. This time he can do a little hurricane jump thing while standing still, which will do damage if you're close enough for it to hit. He can also throw out Dark Fire Gut as a slight, which does quite a bit of damage. It's not as powerful as Helm Splitter, but the fact that it's just a pure projectile makes it harder to avoid in a lot of ways than Helm Splitter. And then he also has another type of projectile move where he'll just swing his sword and create a little circle like shockwave. So, needless to say, Riku's a pain this time around. Fortunately, we have picked up a few more slights since the last battle. As usual, Sonic Blade and Ars Arcanum are good choices to use against him. Tornado will also keep him dizzy and unable to move. And if you can hit him with it, by all means, smack him with Lethal Frame. That's good for a whole bar off. Ragnarok, if you can hit him with the full thing, also does great damage, but that's the whole point. Can you hit him with it? So anyways, Riku is kind of hard, but he's still nothing compared to what he's going to be a floor from now. After this battle, you will be losing Donald and Goofy for a while. You won't have them back until you've completed the next stage due to story reasons. So be prepared for that. By now you should have a deck where you don't really need them. Wild Crush is always a useful move, but you shouldn't be relying on that. And Donald Duck and Goofy's regular moves aren't really that great compared to some of the slights you should have in your deck by now. You will also get the Mega Potion item card from him. Now, Mega Potion would be a good maybe put in your deck if it wasn't for the fact we're getting the Mega Elixir next room up. Mega Potion restores your attack cards, plus I do believe resets your card refill counter. So it's useful, but Mega Elixir will do all that, plus do it for your magic cards as well. So just put that off to the side and Let's aim for that Mega Elixir next floor. We also should have Mega Flare, so next floor should be really easy peasy.